A group of impassioned North Carolina residents battled the polluting practices of large-scale farming after facing property damage, health issues, and more for decades from nearby meatpacking farms. They filed a lawsuit against one of the world's most powerful companies, and surprisingly, they won. Corban Addison, an international best-selling author, takes us into this legal battle in his latest novel, Wastelands, the true story of farm country on trial, raising questions about the future of America's farming practices and what others can do to fight against supposedly invincible corporations. So this is twofold. Corban, thanks so much for taking the time being with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
This community was exposed to hog waste from Smithfield's meatpacking farms. Can you describe exactly how it all started and what the health effects were?
Yeah, sure. I mean, back in the 1960s, this was the old tobacco lands in North Carolina. And as tobacco kind of hit a slide, the hog industry came in and offered contracts to a lot of farmers who were looking for something to do with their land. And so they installed these CAFOs, which are concentrated animal feeding operations, giant barns with thousands of hogs inside of them. And they disposed of these millions of gallons of waste produced by the hogs by carving out basically cesspools in the earth and spraying them out onto fields. The challenge was they never asked the neighbors what life was like next to these gigantic hog operations. And those neighbors, unfortunately, suffered from the spray, which would basically blow onto their neighborhoods like a cloud and drive them indoors and turn their homes into, in one woman's word, a prison.
Yeah, that sounds horrible for so many reasons on so many levels. Those residents you're talking about got together with a legal team. They were able to wage this fight and get justice. How did that happen?
You know, it took a generation, to be honest. I mean, for a long time, there were no lawyers willing to take on the hog industry, which basically owns the state of North Carolina. But it took a courageous and pioneering woman by the name of Mona Lisa Wallace from the small town of Salisbury, who had taken on corporate behemoths in the past, to stand up to Smithfield Foods and be willing to represent these people, most of whom are Black people of modest means in Eastern North Carolina. She brought suit early on in 2013, and it took 7 years of litigation and 5 federal trials before ultimately there was a settlement and the hog industry bent the knee.
Besides being an author, you're also a lawyer, which I find interesting in the context of this particular story. Did your day job sort of bring you to this story, and did it bring a different perspective while you were writing this book?
Yeah, no question. I mean, look, I've always seen the law as a great way of helping me understand the world and the way that business works and the way that justice works. And so I definitely was benefited by that in telling the story, which really I wrote like a legal thriller, though it is 100% true. So I'm really grateful for the fact that I was able to understand the nuances of the law, but then digest them and put them on the page in a way that doesn't make your eyes glaze over. That actually, I think the law is really interesting, but I don't get into too much of the nitty gritty. I tell the fun part.
Yeah, because eyes glazing over is not what you're shooting for. I find it fascinating. No. This is your first work of nonfiction, right? But you write about social issues. I'm wondering what you think needs to change about the large-scale farming industry to make it environmentally sustainable.
You know, I mean, to be honest, the one thing that the neighbors asked for and have been asking for since the 1990s is just for the industry to civilize its waste disposal. I mean, in the United States and in the developed world, we actually treat our waste. We recognize that as biological creatures, we have waste. We need to treat it. We don't, use cesspools and open sewers like human beings have and still do in some parts of the developing world. Unfortunately, the hog industry has been using these medieval cesspools and spray fields for 30 years, and they've simply been unwilling to spend the money to clean up the practice. There is technology available. That technology has been available for a decade or more. It just would cost them a little bit more in order to install it. And they've been unwilling to spend the money. Ultimately, profit is what drives decisions in the boardroom. And that, that one change would solve the problem for the neighbors and also solve the problem for the broader environment.
Yeah, and it's not just this industry. You know as well, we see this in other industries too. Corban Addison, great to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining us. And you can purchase Wastelands, Corban's latest book, The True Story of Farm Country on Trial, wherever books are sold.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.